Well, you know, the pavilion itself, and I'm responsible for the architecture, not the exhibition. I think of it as a kind of scaffolding for ideas that then are placed in it as content. So let's say I'm responsible for the form, not entirely for the content, but the form carries real messages about analog versus digital, about science versus nature, about history versus the future. And all of those kind of embedded ideas are, I think, the kind of leitmotif feeding the future energy for life.
Well, the theme of the Expo, feeding the world, feeding the planet, new ideas for the world, is a very important theme because we speak about food and about problems with the food in many countries and about the ideas how to bring the capacity of food to bigger rations. And so far I didn't imagine for our pavilion to be like too big or too expensive or too spectacular and like a monument to the architect who made it. Much more we wanted to make very elegant, as I hope, but quite modest and significant gest for this temporary construction, that everybody can recognize the Russian pavilion from a longer distance. And in any case, the site of the pavilion, the site of Expo, is like a site of many small buildings in the village. So you don't see the building from many points. So we made the big accent, this big cantilever from the main points from the entrance, and made the other part of pavilion much more modest, much more simple, but in the tradition what I explained already.
The expression of or understanding of China, of the theme of Expo Milano. In short, they're in two ways. So in terms of the form, we established a roof line by connecting the skyline of Beijing city and the contour of the mountain range in China. It is an expression of a hope that the city and the nature can be exist in harmony. In terms of the sustainable design, we using a huge amount of the sustainable material like glulam, wood, OSB, bamboo, and also we try our best to eliminate using the curtain wall, so we can have the nature ventilation come into the space and to cool down the exhibition area. And also the air conditioning using also be eliminated, or we can say minimized by this way.
What I wanted to do was use a symbol as a metaphor of something which is very simple, which a child could understand as well as a professor. And there's a well-documented decline of the honeybee, and the honeybee is essential to the pollination of our food and the planet. And I wanted to highlight the plight of the honeybee. The honeybee can be sort of seen as a sentinel for the earth, almost as a barometer for the health of the earth. And I wanted to express this, if people could kind of feel and realize that the problems that the honeybee is facing, that maybe a percentage of the people who would see the pavilion, who would experience the pavilion, might think slightly different, might change their ways of behaviour. There might be a slight shift of consciousness. So it's a small little pebble which I've kind of thrown in the pool, and hopefully those ripples will emanate outwards. So it's a simple message, but to try and do that cohesively is always the most difficult thing to do. And to try and do everything, we were commissioned just under a year to do the pavilion. And it's been an amazing experience, but it's been incredibly challenging, just in terms of the programme, in terms of the budget. And we're now 3 weeks away from opening, and it feels great. It's looking good, but there's still a lot to do. But it's really exciting, and I'm really pleased with the whole of the team. This couldn't have happened without this really fantastic integration, I think, between science architecture and art, landscape, food, and I think everyone has kind of understood the vision, and I think because of that it's kind of come together, and it's been an amazing experience. At the moment I'm so wrapped in it, I'm so in the middle of it, it's very difficult to step outside and be objective, but I think it's going to be good.
Well, we believe in a very elemental way because we've kind of selected a certain food or nourishment which is very important to all of us, which is air. So for us, for our pavilion, we are kind of putting out that air is the nourishment or the food number one for all of us, even instead of food coming from the landscape. And very importantly, air connects everybody with everything because it's all over our planet.
I think the energy is inside each people, inside each person. The idea is gather people inside the place, have a contact with our culture, and I think that the first area of our place is an open area with a very big net reflects this place to make people being together.
Well, if you see the pavilion of Chile, it's like a big basket who contains all the fruits of the country. And also in the interior, we express what the country is, the hospitality of the country. In the ground floor, we have a huge space, an open space that connects with the rest of the urban life, and there we have a big table. In that table, we are going to you can take the food of Chile, and you can have the hospitality of my country.
First of all, we try to use a lot of green energy, renewable energy, like we had in our initial concept some photovoltaic panels and solar panels, but owing to the budget and the time too short, we have to renounce on them. And we had also a concept regarding the heating pumps. They are maybe the most efficient elements regarding the conserving the energy, but also causing to the budget, we have to renounce on it. But we reuse the water. We in the same time we use traditional elements like the thatched roof, for example, and which is very well known for his ability to let the building breathe, and also it's a very good isolation. In the same time, we use the soil like isolation because we have a garden, and this garden is in the same time an isolation element for the ground floor. We reuse the water. Part of rainfall water we reuse for the garden, for maintaining the garden. These are some elements regarding the demands of the Expo 2015. And also we use renewable material like wood, which is very easy to use, and in the same time we can dismantle, let's say, at the final our pavilion.
Well, feeding the planet and energy for life starts with food, and the whole Expo, the theme of the Expo is about that. Our pavilion leads you through a process. You discover United Arab Emirates, and what it's going to be like, and right at the end there is food. And the building itself conserves energy and in fact will be recycled 100% by taking the building back to the Emirates.
I think that food is probably in an overpopulated planet, perhaps is the least superfluous thing of all. So we try to convey to stay away from whimsy formalistic proposals and somehow refer to the buildings in which food has been always been produced, stored, and now invented.
For us, the main important things reflecting the theme of Expo is to imagine an osmotic organism that breathes with the ambience, have an exchange with the environment. This is really important for us. For this reason, we have this idea of the trees of the forest. Second one, we want to express the idea that yes, the alimentation, food is really important, but it's also important to give the social dimension in the way in which we take food. Italy, in this sense, is famous because create an idea of community, and the square inside the pavilion is the place in which the Italian community can meet together and recognize itself like community.
The architecture of the pavilion actually is derived from the contents of the exhibition that we designed, which basically is based on the baobab tree, that it's not only a very important source of food, but also a very symbolic, culturally symbolic element in our culture. And so the whole building was designed, even the structure, as a mirror image of that tree.
So one thing is that we try to reduce as much as possible. For that reason, the first decision was to have an exhibition at the outside of the pavilion, so on the roof of the pavilion. We just invented these trees to protect the people from sun and to create a nice temperature without using lots of technology. So this is the main message we want to show to the people, that we have a pavilion just for 6 months and we have to dismantle it after the Expo, and for that reason we can't build sustainable buildings, but we want to build buildings that are using less materials as possible.